Welcome to Local Impact. You can make a difference. Tonight, we have someone who has gifts, skills, abilities that I don't even know how to verbalize. So I'm going to tell you about Lisa Rothstein. Lisa and I met because we're both authors, and she has a new book she's promoting. She's the New Yorker cartoonist. She's a Madison Avenue creative director, visual thinking strategist, and has spent 30 years making complex ideas easy to understand and impossible to ignore for brands like IBM, Hanes, Unilever, and other Fortune 500 clients, including Logitech. I think is that my camera is a Logitech, Bayer, and also Merck. Her book, Drawing Out Your Genius, recently won a bronze 2025 Axiom Business Book Award. She writes the only illustrated column on Psychology Today and is the San Diego chapter chair of the National Cartoonists Society. Lisa's mission: in a world of AI-generated polish, teach people to use their most powerful competitive advantage, the mark of their own human hand. I wanted to just describe what it is we're going to be talking about, and this is in Lisa's word. When citizens can't make their voices heard, it's often not because they lack passion, it's because they can't make their case clearly enough to move people in power. Visual storytelling changes that. Lisa shows everyday citizens how to use simple hand-drawn sketches to cut through the complexity, to make their arguments impossible to ignore, and to get decision makers to actually listen. In a world of AI-generated noise, a rough human drawing is the most persuasive thing in the room. Lisa will show us how to use that to our advantage at City Hall and beyond. Lisa and I were talking before the show, and the biggest problem I have is I really can't draw to save myself. I couldn't sculpt if my life depended on it. Through all the time that I've been involved in local politics, I've known that things needed to be simplified, and I've worked hard to simplify them. I know from speaking that it's always good to have a visual aid. We're going to take it so much farther than that tonight. Lisa, I'm going to let you just take it away, and I'll probably interrupt you frequently with
Oh,
questions.
please do. I am so excited to be here because this is the first time I've ever had a chance to talk to an audience like this and a group like this for a purpose like this. As a cartoonist, I do love to tell stories and to make people smile and laugh, sometimes about politics, most of the time just about life. And I'll show you a couple of examples. But the kind of drawing that I want to talk to you folks about today, your people and you, is something that really even people who think they can't draw can actually do. And I'm talking about drawing more as a tool to communicate and less as what one would call art. And I'm going to give you a couple of demonstrations today. Just because we are talking about cartoons a little bit for the fun of it, I'm going to show a couple of things that I've done for the New Yorker that do tell stories and that do have something a little bit to do with what's happening in the world or was happening in the world at the time. It was the first cartoon that the New Yorker ever published of mine, and it was during the first Trump administration when the first meeting between the president and Kim Jong-un was happening. And I'm old enough to remember how surreal that would be since no one had ever talked to this person. The newscasters on TV said that the following day they were going to go into a room by themselves where they would just them and their translators. And I thought, I can't imagine what that conversation is going to be like. This is the cartoon. It shows a scene that I imagined of Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un at a table, just the two of them. And Donald Trump is leaning over Kim's shoulder, and Kim is playing with an iPhone or just a phone. And Trump is saying to Kim, then you just hit tweet and the whole world goes crazy. I want to tell you that I've never succeeded with a cartoon as much as I had with this one. It went completely viral because people from both sides of the aisle thought it was funny for their own reasons. So Jake Tapper from CNN shared it on his Twitter. Tucker Carlson, who was then of Fox News, also shared it on his Twitter. The Washington Post shared it on their Twitter. And before I knew it, all the other cartoonists were my idols. Who I thought were so famous were like when I came back in to see the editor the following week, were all talking about because it was so widely shared.
So your
Yeah,
very first cartoon for the New Yorker hit the
and
big time.
I hit the big time, and I've never been able to capture that lightning in a bottle again. But what I
Oh,
just want to point out about this is that it's a very simple drawing, but it just basically it's a snapshot of an imagined moment. This is not what we're really going to be talking about today, but because everybody wants to know about of the New Yorker and things like that, I wanted to show that. And then here's another one that's not really political, but it took This one also was a daily cartoon. About 6 months. It was run in June of 2020. So if you can imagine, remember what we were all doing in June of 2020. It was
Oh, we were
only
COVIDing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was only 6 months into COVID. And this one is a picture of the devil in hell, and he's talking to his little assistant, and they're both looking down into the pit of hell where a lot of naked people are each sitting there on their laptops, each looking very miserable. And the caption says the devil is saying to his assistant, "It's new. We placed them in an endless video conference with everyone they couldn't stand in life." You
That's
remember
great.
everyone was talking about Zoom hell. That became a thing, Zoom hell, and I was like, well, I'm just going to show what if hell really had Zoom? What if hell really had video conferencing and everyone was stuck there forever? And that was basically how everybody was feeling. But we didn't realize we still had another year or two to have to get through. So the things about cartoons is that they make you, give you a different perspective about what's going on. The kind of drawing I want to talk to you about today, though, is the sort of thing that you'll see in my book, which I'm going to hold up in front of the camera right now, also with this little axiom medal
Oh, yeah.
that I got. So I started to put that on there. But the kind of drawings that I'm going to be talking about are more things that are like this, that are kind of more line drawings, very, very simple drawings that tell a story, that are very kind of kindergarten level, as what I like to say. It's not meant to talk anybody down or to denigrate anybody's talent. In fact, I like to say the worse it looks, the better it works, and that talent is actually an inhibitor here. It's really not helpful because the kind of pictures we're talking about, if we're trying to make an impact politically or trying to tell a story or trying to simplify a complex idea, is really, you don't want people looking at your picture saying, oh, what a great artist you are. You want people to be
No.
looking at the drawing and saying, oh, now I understand what's going on here. The kinds of things that I do when I show people, it's more something that looks a little bit like this. And right now I'm holding up a sketch pad for anybody who's just listening. And I'm going to be drawing, like over here, I drew like a little line here that looks kind of like a cliff, and a little line here that's another cliff on the other side. And now I have, here is a person who's over here and they want to get over there, and what's over there, maybe they want to build a bigger cities, or have like more urban development or something like that on the other side, but they don't know how to get from here to there. So maybe we build a bridge, and in the bridge there are all these different steps where, if we do this here, then we do that there, and then we do this here, then we can get to this vision we have
Wow.
of a smart city. For example, you see how simple this drawing
Oh,
is.
yeah. That's amazing.
You could do this even if you think you can't draw. And that's not meant to say, oh, if you were like Leonardo da Vinci, you could draw a more beautiful city. We don't want that. We want less, not more, right? Because this is the language of ideas. This is not about being
Mm.
artistic. So here's what something like this will do. It simplifies the complex, which is what we're talking about. So if you were going to have a conversation about, like, wow, right now we don't have enough development, we really need to have more affordable housing, so we need to add more, we have all of these people, and they have no place to live, and it's getting so crowded. What we really need is more high-rise buildings near transportation. Let's make sure we have some, like, some train tracks over here, and maybe some buses that go here, so that people can get to their work. I mean, these are
Hmm.
really, really crude drawings. But not only have I simplified the conversation, and now we have, like, well, what are the steps to get there? Let's talk about those. It invites collaboration. So if you're actually talking
Mm.
to somebody that you're trying to get enrolled in your vision, for example, or you're hoping that they will buy into what you're suggesting, now they can see what you're talking about and they go, oh, now I get what you're saying. I don't really agree with the way that you're planning on getting there. Like, I like step one, but step two is not something that we can afford. It's got too. I'm
Hmm.
just making this up as I go along. Too
Right.
much money in step two. How can we eliminate step two? Can we make it cheaper? Can we find a way to fund it? Do we need that, or can we skip it? What happens if we don't, we have a little shark in the water at the bottom there. It's just a triangle, right? If we don't make it across the chasm, we might end up in the shark infested waters down there. I mean, this, and so that, what would you laughed. What's helpful also is that sometimes these things can be a little bit funny. That breaks the tension too, especially if you're talking about something that people may be disagreeing about, or something like that. To get everybody laughing together is always a good thing. It's just kind of a byproduct. The point is that now, if you're having that conversation, now it's not just you presenting something as a fait accompli with a PowerPoint, and 52 slides that bores everybody to death. Now you're
Mhm.
showing one simple image that everybody can understand and then they can also contribute to, so that now I see my ideas on this picture,
Mhm.
and now I'm involved in this. Now I co-own this, and so if, especially if you've taken some of my suggestions and say, oh well, that's interesting, yeah, you're right, that's true, that is a, that would take a lot of resources, maybe we can find a way to get somebody else to pay for that, or maybe we can raise some money for that, or take it from someplace else, like maybe we can get the money from, we have this other thing over here that maybe we don't need to spend so much money on. So now you're having a conversation, and now when the meeting is over, everybody can take a picture of this, or they have this, and they all remember what you talked about. They all remember the objections and how we solved the objections or didn't solve the
Mhm.
objections.
Mhm.
Now, this is not to say that you don't also have the 52-page PowerPoint with all the details. But when you're trying to get people on the same page, literally and figuratively, the simpler you can make it so that they can participate, and the less they have to read, and the less weeds they have to get into, the easier it is to have this conversation. Yeah, and now if they read the 52 pages, it makes sense because they have some context, like what is
Mhm.
this really about.
It's almost an outline in it.
It
Yeah.
is. It's a summary, it's an outline. And the thing is, it's great to show this to somebody, but if you can actually draw it out live in the room on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper, like I'm doing here I use an iPad a lot that projected into the meeting if it's a Zoom meeting. First of all, people don't look away. When it's a slide and it's static and it's sitting there, your brain is someplace else. You're thinking, what am I going to make for dinner? And I wish I could get out of here. And why couldn't this meeting be an
It's
email? Why
cold
couldn't
in
I read
this
this?
room. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But when you see something coming to life in front of your eyes, and it might include something that you've actually said in the room, like, I try to include everybody. So if somebody says something, even if it's not really that relevant, I'll make sure that it ends up, their words end up someplace on the page that's like, oh, I said that. Look, it's right there. Now they're part of the conversation. It's partly for communication, but it's also partly for inclusion and enrollment
Yeah.
and dialogue. One of the other things that's important about this today, especially more than before, I've always thought it was important, but more than before, is we're all talking about AI. I'm probably the worst person to put AI down because I use it all day long. And my husband is jealous of Claude because I talk to Claude all day long. So I don't have anything against AI except that it does remove a lot of the human emotional connection that I think people are going to be craving more and more. So when you show up willing to have the courage to do something like this in front of a room full of people, it's going to stand out even more than before. It always made you stand out as somebody brave enough to pick up the marker. Like, oh my God, I could never do that. People like you say, I can't
Hmm.
draw. I could never do that. You could do that if you really wanted to. But the fact is that now, when everybody's presenting these beautiful, polished things, it really stands out when you show up with a dry erase marker and say, well, here's what I thought we should do. And everyone's like, oh my
That's
God,
brilliant.
he's like, he's laying it out for me right here in front of me. It's not already done. It's not already finished. I can actually have something to say about this, and something might change if I contribute, instead of it being a fait accompli that I'm just supposed to sit and just suck it up because it's all over, it's finished, and I have nothing to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is how people feel and what
Yeah.
they express. Can I give you a scenario and you can give me some
Sure.
background?
I was hoping you would do that.
Hmm.
Make sure I have my marker here. Yeah, like let's see what happens.
Yeah.
This is completely unrehearsed, everybody. I have no idea what he's going to say. I really don't.
Why
So
don't I shall I give you the whole overview first?
yeah, tell
Yeah.
me first, and then maybe I'll get started.
I live in a small beach town. 50 years ago in California, we put in the California Coastal Act, which protects the coast. And
Mm.
the real uniqueness about my little town is that from almost every street, because it's a little bit hilly, you can see the coast. Recently, during COVID, when no one was paying attention, the city decided to override the work that the community had done for about 10 years, saying, here's how we want our little city to develop. We want to retain these views, and we're open to building a little bit higher. So we'll go to 2, 3, maybe even 4 stories, 40 feet, but only in certain intersections. And what happened is all of a sudden, no one was expecting this because no one went to Zoom hell to
Mm.
go to the meetings, if they even were doing Zoom meetings early on when they were working on all of this. All of a sudden, these two gigantic and most people think ugly, poorly designed, generic AI created essentially buildings, very tall, lot line to lot line, appeared on 2 corners of our busiest intersection.
Hmm.
Since then, another 10 like that are in the works. They're 55 to 65 feet high, and they obliterate the views that are our unique selling point. We are literally on the beach, and it's our main street, Grand Avenue, drives right on. You could drive straight into the ocean if you didn't have brakes. People are saying no more tall buildings, no more tall buildings. Well, we know we're going to have 10, but what's happened is a full 7 blocks of one side of this street, all in the coast, almost all in the coastal zone, is going to have these 55 to 65 foot high buildings. It just like a
So I
wall.
guess, are they apartment buildings, or are
Uh,
they
they're they're
they're
they're
residential, or are they
expensive
business?
they're expensive condos.
Right. So they want, so
Yeah.
all this, so this way they can sell all those people a view while obliterating the view of the people who have single family
Yes,
property.
of the community.
Yeah.
And Coastal Act expresses it really well. It says that it's really unique to have, in an urban setting, to have views of the coast. This Coastal Act says that is of national importance. I would say international importance because
Right.
people come from all over
So
the
it's just
world.
what I'm hearing is, so you have the ocean here, right? And
Uh-huh.
you have these homes that have these great views of the coast, and you have, let's
Well, it's
say,
not
what,
about the homes with the views of the
okay,
coast because that
okay,
you can't protect. It's about the
right,
fact that you can drive down any street in our
okay,
town
all
and
right.
see the ocean.
So okay, so I'm driving and I can see the
Yeah,
ocean.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
now what you're telling me is, while COVID was happening, they put up these big high rises, and now they're going up all over the place.
Yeah.
And now, if I'm in my car over here, I don't see the ocean anymore. And what you guys are saying is, this is bad enough that we're going to have 10 of these, this times 10,
Yeah.
already, and you're
Yeah.
afraid the entire place is going to get just completely full of all of
Right.
these humongous things. And wouldn't
Yes.
that be a shame? So it's very important where you corrected me. It's very important that the people making the arguments are not the quote unquote selfish homeowners who don't want their own view
The NIMBYs.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
NIMBYs. But it's not only a NIMBY thing. It's like my property value must go down significantly if I lose my view. Correct?
It does, yes, to one extent, but what we're seeing now is these high rises are so expensive. You've got a condo with no yard whatsoever
Right.
that if someone now wants to buy a house on a lot, where they have a
Right.
backyard and the whole works, those values have gone up, although
Oh, okay. So actually,
condos have gone
I
down.
can't complain that
Yeah.
my property value has gone down. My property value has actually gone up if I'm
Yeah.
a homeowner. So I'm not the homeowners that aren't complaining. It's the people who care about the neighborhood and the historic value and the aesthetic value of the town.
That's what it is.
Drawing this actually helped me understand the situation, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people who think it's a NIMBY thing,
Hmm.
and what you've just explained to me, and what this picture explains, even though it looks like a chicken scratch, is that it's not a NIMBY thing. It's not even just a NIMBY thing. It is a you're spoiling this beautiful place for
Yes.
everyone, for
Yes.
every
Yes.
even for people who are tourists who don't even live here, people who are just driving through. This used to be an awe-inspiring vista, and now it's just a bunch of tall condos.
Mostly second homes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing. These people who are living, who are owning these things, are not even residents. So it's spoiling quality of life for both residents and visitors. And really all it is giving non-residents a valuable piece of property, and the developers are getting rich because we weren't paying attention when they were deciding to put all these buildings up. So now we are paying attention, and we'd like to say, all right, 10 is enough. So we don't
Yeah.
want any more here.
I
This is
love
a terrible
that.
drawing, because I wasn't even looking at what I was doing. If I had the time, and if I were standing in front of a whiteboard, and it'd be like, first we had this beautiful
Yeah.
space, and
Oh,
all
right.
of these
Yeah.
accolades and everything like that. And now that these things have gone up, it's really impacted the aesthetic of the entire area. And we've already lost so much by having these 10 buildings put up and planned. And now we'd like to put a stop to it so we can preserve what's left of this amazing
Yes, you've
place, right?
absolutely nailed it. Let me put another pitch into it. It's coming to the city council in about a week, and most of the people who want to go and protest it will have 3 minutes to express their view to the city council. Can we do that in 3 minutes?
I think we could, and I think that's where picture would actually help. Now, maybe they don't need to draw it right there in front of them. Maybe somebody draws it ahead of time, and we reveal. Sometimes what I will do is I will have already drawn something, and I will put another layer over it Like, so, for example, while I'm doing this, we've got this beautiful space and we have these beautiful views. Then I've already drawn something here, and I'm going to take another piece of paper, and you could have like a board up there where it's like this this beautiful. This is so crude right now, but you could show, just have something else like
Yeah.
covering up
Oh,
the other
yeah.
part of it. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
you've got this
Oh,
beautiful
yeah.
flag, which has been wonderful, and for years and years, and you could say how many years the place has been here, and who said how wonderful it is. But now, during COVID, all of these buildings went up that we were not aware. We had no say in it. It's completely ruining the aesthetic, obliterating its character, obliterating its aesthetic value. We're protesting any more of these going up. Obviously, we can't tear down the ones that have already created sort of what we consider to be an eyesore, but we certainly can ask you to stop it now that we are aware of what's going on.
Then there's another piece to it that occurs to me as you work through this, and that is that the citizens of the community had actually created a visioning, called it the 2004 visioning, where they said, here's how we want it to look. We want it to be 2 and 3 story buildings. We can have slightly taller buildings at certain intersections. So we could actually even go in there and say, here's what we're getting, but here's what we said we wanted. Here's what the community developed
Right. So,
together
so,
over
so
a
not
10 year.
only have they gone and done this without your
Mhm.
approval or knowledge, but they've gone expressly against what you had already expressed as the vision for the
Right.
area. So what we would like instead of what they're planning is, if people want to build higher buildings, that we respectfully suggest that they only be this high or this
Right.
many stories, and
Right.
not these monstrosities that belong in inner cities. Our place is too small and intimate to house these giant skyscrapers.
I love what you're saying. I think we could
Yeah, but
use,
you could actually say that in 2014 we had this vision of what things were going to look like,
yeah,
and here it is. This was our vision, and then these people came along and did this, which is not, it is completely against what we
right.
envisioned, and we were not consulted, and we were ignored, and either they were not aware of this and they went ahead and did it, or they were aware of it and they ignored it. So we don't want any more of it. I don't know how much power you have to be able to veto these
Well,
folks
we
have
have
in mind.
significant power in California because you can do a citizens ballot measure initiative, and we
Mhm.
have, and there are 8,000 voters in our town. About half of them vote regularly, and we had 1,256 signatures that we gathered over a course of just a few weeks of people who say, please, no more tall buildings. So that will go on to the ballot. We would like to convince them to just adopt it because it will win.
Mm.
We have a city that doesn't listen well.
Who gets to write the ballot measure?
Those of us who were initially concerned about it got together and everybody said, here are my concerns. Here's how I think it should be. And all of that was considered and worked and reworked over a course of several weeks until we arrived at what really was the community consensus on what they'd
Mhm.
like to see.
And that would be the language that would go on the ballot measure? Who decides the language on the ballot?
The citizens, yeah, they decided that
Okay.
would be the
I only
language.
ask because, and this has
Yeah.
nothing to do with our conversation for today, but
Yes.
I only ask because I also live in California. I'm not from California, as you could probably tell by my accent. And I never was interested in politics or paid much attention to it until I moved to California, because so many things happen here, in my view, that, like in your situation, that just wait a second, who voted for this? What I've noticed as someone who used to be a copywriter in advertising is that when see these ballot measures, I'm convinced that people who voted for the gas tax last time thought were voting against it because of the way the thing
They
was
do that
worded.
on purpose. Yeah.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm
It's
asking
so
who's writing your
offensive.
ballot measure. It almost doesn't matter what you decide, as if someone writes it to make it seem as if they're voting for the opposite. It's like
Mhm.
anytime they want to raise taxes, it's like, oh, vote yes on the puppies and kittens.
Oh yeah, it's going to
You know,
be public safety and beautiful streets and
yeah, no,
all the
no,
they
and
know what
yeah,
buttons to push.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's why it's so important to get people to understand what you're actually talking about, so that when they
right.
see the ballot measure, it'll be like, well, wait a sec, does that mean we want the buildings or we don't want the building?
Right.
And
We
so
wrote
that's
it very clear. And we've actually done another 3 over the course of the last 2 years. There have been several, and every single one has achieved the objective. Some of them didn't get to the ballot, but they achieve the objective. It's been very powerful.
Your best sales tool for this particular thing is those the big buildings themselves, because it sounds like they're pretty universally disliked by people who aren't
Yeah.
living in them. So
Yes.
the thing that's great about doing something like this, even if you only have 3 minutes, especially if you only have 3 minutes, is you've got like, hey, here's what happened, and
Hmm.
here's what we're protesting, and here's what we want. And then it's really hard for people to not pay attention or to just let it go
Yeah.
by. And it's memorable and it's human. It's not showing a photograph of those big, huge buildings. It's showing a representation of what that construction, how it's impacting people and how it makes people feel. I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly how I would visualize it if I only had 3 minutes to do it, but it's actually quite a bit of time if you have a visual aid to
I
help.
really think we can do it. I think that we can start with the beautiful coast like you had there and
Yeah,
then say, and here's how we wanted to see it develop. And maybe that's a photograph of things
right.
or a
Right. And then you
collage.
go back to this
Yeah.
thing and it's like, but here's
And
what happened
and here's
instead.
what we got.
Yeah.
And here's what we want to go back to
Yeah,
and bring
exactly.
the
But
one that
obviously
was
we're not suggesting that you tear down the things that have already been constructed, although if we could, we would. Obviously those things are facts on the ground, but we don't want any more of them.
one of the huge ironies is that since 2020, there have been 88 affordable units created. Every single one has been in a building under 33 feet high. Not
Mm-hmm.
one, not one. And of course, what they say is, oh, we have to create housing. Well, they're not creating housing, they're creating second homes for rich people. Oh, we
Mm-hmm.
have to create housing. Oh, we have to do affordable housing. Well, they're not one of these is
Yeah,
developing
how affordable is it a condo in any one of those buildings? I
1.4
guess
million.
I guess they think, well, if all the rich people move into the condos, the things that they didn't buy will all be for the poor people, right? I don't think so. You
That's
know,
exactly what they think, and they actually say that. The city council actually says that. Oh well, people could downsize into these, and then their homes will be available to families. Well, they won't because the homes are now 1.4 million too,
exactly. The home,
because
yeah,
that's how they comp or
it's
more.
yeah, they've gentrified the entire area to the point where now,
Exactly.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
It's law of unintended consequences, and you can always say, well,
Oh
the
yes.
intention, I'm sure the intention was for that to be the case, but here's what happened. We thought the single family homes would be for families, but instead they've become even more expensive than they were before. They used to be this much and now they're this much because these are the property values, which is great for the people who already own these homes, but the general aesthetic and the general affordability of this area is
Yeah.
impacted
What's
negatively by
really
these
interesting
buildings.
is it's great for the people who own those homes, except that they can't sell them because no one can afford a house of that value because the interest rates are so high. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, it's gone up in value, but they can't sell them.
I think that's a less good argument only because interest rates change all the time, and that could be not.
If it takes it too far, but I'm a real estate broker, so
Oh, yeah, and I'm
I think
not.
in those terms.
You can see how this is going to be. Some people would argue that real estate values going up for everybody is good for everybody who lives in the neighborhood. So why are you complaining? I think that if the value we're looking for is not the value of my house, but the value of the
It's the quality of
of,
life.
of, of the quality of life for everyone who lives there and anybody who visits, then enough is enough with these condos. And had you guys known about those, you probably would have protested before they went up, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, people
Yeah.
would have been up in arms.
So yeah, so the fact that they even happened without your knowledge and or consent is you've already been injured by this,
Hmm.
and you'd like to stop the bleeding. It is a complicated situation. One of the things that's good about a very simple picture is it leaves out the stuff you don't want to talk about. So it leaves out the NIMBY
Right,
stuff. It leaves out the property value stuff. So
right.
if anybody wants to talk about that, they can bring it up, and you can basically just say yes, but that's not true because everything's gotten so expensive. Anyway, we're not talking about property values. We're talking about the aesthetic of the coast.
Mm.
That's what we're here to talk about, not
We're
about
talking about values, personal values or community values,
community values,
not
not home
not the price of
values.
houses.
That's right.
Yeah.
But even if you were talking about the price of houses, this is not helping anybody afford
Yeah.
to live in this area.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. To me, those things seemed insurmountable, and you just did it. You just
Well,
showed us
I
how to think and how to do it.
that's the other thing that I don't think people appreciate as much is that it's drawing things out like what we did together just now is not only a communication tool, but it's also a thinking tool for yourself. We just discussed now because I brought up the views from the homes. It's like, no, we're not talking about that. Okay, we're not talking about that. So we're going to leave that out when we do this,
Hmm.
because it's a simple drawing. You can't put everything in. So you can't muddy the waters with all this extra stuff
Yes.
that people have told me I should run for office. And one of the reasons I would never do it is because sitting in these meetings that you're talking about would absolutely make me want to tear my hair out because of, and the big reason is that everybody either on purpose or just because of the nature of everything ends up talking about a bunch of details that are irrelevant to what this is not why we're here. We could be here forever if we go into all of these different details. What we're here, the main thing we're here to talk about is this. Don't try to confuse me with all of this.
And that's very
Always,
often done.
you know,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course. I mean, I think some people
Uh-huh.
do it as a smokescreen, and some people do it because they
Hmm.
don't know how to prioritize a message.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so doing a simple sketch kind of forces you into a very linear way of thinking and discussing things, and just by definition is reductive in the way you express things. I wanted to show the thing I was showing you before we came on because this is a very simple, and I can give you your folks a downloadable resource where they can walk through this, and I have a little video walking through this. But one of the simplest ways, and I use this for sales, I use this for all these kinds of things that anybody can draw this, and we talked about this before we came on, is what I call the bridge. And so the bridge
Uh-huh.
sketch has to do with you've got a situation that you're in right now. This is imagine this is a cliff, and then imagine this is another cliff. But obviously there's no way to get from here to there right now. So now you draw your current situation over here. I'm over here right now with the okay, yes, I am. I'm over here right now with these big buildings that it's making me mad.
Yeah.
And I'm not happy about all of these big condos going up where I used to have beautiful, beautiful coastal views. And what I want is something where we have reasonable, maybe somewhat taller buildings, and so that everybody could still see, you would still be
Hmm.
able to see all of this. So, the way that we can get there, I'm going to say there's maybe 4 steps to get there is to, review, the plans that are already going on about the new buildings that are going to go up, and then, have some meetings to evaluate whether or not we should really do these and like review these. And then maybe, like you said, like a ballot measure. I'm going to make like a little clipboard here. Maybe we let people vote about this, so that we can decide whether or not we want these big, huge buildings anymore. Maybe we can make like a shared vision where everybody is looking at this, and we can agree on what should be for our town, because we already had a vision. We already had a vision over here about what we wanted from 2014, and nobody paid any attention to it. But if we could all get on the same page, then we might have a solution that everybody could live with. What are the steps to get from here to there, where we're unhappy with the way things are and the way things are going, to where we could agree on what our town is supposed to look like? And you mentioned a ballot measure. You mentioned, like let's actually see the plans now, instead of having
Hmm.
them, instead of being blindsided by them. Maybe we vote and ask and get our 8,000 people to actually weigh in on whether this is something they want or not, and then come up with a new plan. This is something that you could do. But anyway, the idea is the bridge allows you to be like, I'm here right now, this is the situation I have and I don't want, here's the situation I want but I don't have, and here are some ways that we can get from here to there.
Hmm.
If we don't build the bridge, then I'm going to be stuck here. We need the bridge, and of course we talked about this too. If we don't build the bridge and we fall and if it fails, we end up with the shark. That's like the
Yeah.
risk
Yeah.
factor. Like what's
Yeah.
wrong? Like what happens if we don't make it? I don't. That's kind of optional. This is really more
Hmm.
the and then you could have a whole discussion about like what's bad about what's going on right now and what's good about the proposed vision, because a lot of times you'll end up with people who all they do is complain, and they said we hate this, we don't want this, we're
Yes.
upset about this, blah, blah, blah. So, well, what do you want to do about it? Well, obviously we can't tear down the buildings, but we could agree on how we want the place to look from now
And
on.
we could stop. We could say 10 is enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. 10 is fine. 10 is more than we wanted, but we certainly don't, but it is what it is. And now we're going to be more intentional. If people want a template of this, and basically step by step about what I just did that they can use for their own situations, if they will go to drawingoutyourgenius.com
Okay.
/bridge, they can download a kind of a
Oh, that's
PDF that
so
has,
wonderful. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. And basically just walks you through what I just did. And there's a little video of me doing it again. So you'll be able to kind of follow along, and you can use it for pretty much anything. Here's my situation. Here's the situation I want.
And here's how we get there.
What are some ways we can get?
If people want to go deeper, you've got your book, Drawing Out Your Genius.
Right.
Where can people find that?
Right now, they can find it on Amazon. Let's go to Amazon. You can find it. First part of it is really kind of a tutorial about how to do a very simple visual vocabulary. I break it down into 3 C's: character, concepts, which are more like icons and things like that, and then concepts, which are things like metaphors, like bridges, like icebergs, like roads in the distance, and things like that. One of the things I love is being able to teach people different facial expressions for because the first thing I'm going to show you, the first thing I ever bought with my own money when I was a child was this little book of Snoopy
Oh,
cartoons. It was 40 cents. I have hundreds of these books now, but this was my very first one. And I used to just sit there and study expressions on the people's faces. And I was thinking, I know this is just a piece of paper, but I feel happy or sad or angry when I see these pictures. Like, what is that? I'm showing some more pictures from inside there where I teach people how to do like all these different expressions, but it's only
wow.
a difference of two or three little lines that make a huge difference in what they express. The other thing I like to talk about is anybody can make this picture. It's a circle with a couple of squiggles on it, but it looks like the earth. But depending
Mm-hmm.
on what words you put next to it, like here it says travel, here it says logistics. On the next page, I have same picture. I basically copied and pasted it. Climate, markets, world peace. It's the same picture. You can start a conversation about all kinds of different things depending on what decide that image is going to mean in this context. So I really love to talk about that. In the book, there are also chapters about innovation, chapters about using this for sales, which is a little bit like what we just did, chapters about using it to align your team. There's a chapter about taking visual notes, which is something we talked about before I came on. One of the things I do as part of my work is something called sketch noting or graphic recording, where I take live visual notes as people are speaking. This is something that's a really great skill to have just for yourself if you're sitting in a meeting, to be able to draw pictures of what people are saying so that you have a much more memorable record of what happened.
Yeah.
And anytime you do this, people are going to say, oh, can I take a picture of that? Can I have a copy of your notes? Everybody wants that. The last chapter is about harmonizing your team, basically getting everybody on the same page and aligning people. And that's one of the things we talked about today, is getting consensus, because you're all looking, instead of talking across the table at each other and I said this and you said that, and it's just like a game of tennis that never ends. When you have a picture that everybody's looking at, now we're all facing in the same direction, looking at the same thing, and now trying to find a solution that we can all see how we all see things the same way. I don't know how many times I've been in a meeting where everyone thinks they agreed and they walk out, and then they come back the next time and they all have a completely different, where that doesn't happen. You have a shared visual record of what you discussed. People may still not agree, but at least they know they don't agree. There's not a fake consensus. So there are a lot of business use cases in the book, but the first part really will teach anybody how to do very, very simple pictures that can express a lot of different ideas, or probably more than you'll ever need, but just enough. It's a little like the
Yeah.
Berlitz guide of.
If people wanted to reach you, would they go to your website or
They could
want
go to
to know more?
drawingoutyourgenius.com. Yeah, that's my website. Or LinkedIn is also a great place to reach me.
Drawingoutyourgenius.com is your website. Okay.
Yes, it
And
is.
but for the book, you go to Amazon.
You go to
Um,
Amazon, look for Drawing
but
Out Your
just for
Genius.
more
Yeah,
insight and things, we
yeah,
can take a look at your website.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you feel like we should say or should have covered or
Any situation that is complicated can be simplified both in your mind and other people's minds by doing a simple sketch. And if you can't do it, it's not because you can't draw, it's because you don't really understand the situation. It's the same thing with writing. A lot of times when I used to be a copywriter, people were like, well, I can't write, I'm not a good writer. It's like, no, that might be true. You might not be a good writer, but what your problem probably is, you aren't really clear on what you're saying. And in the act of writing or in the act of drawing, you become more clear. You see where your fuzziness
yeah,
is, and you have to
you
kind of
see the
face
way
it.
forward. Yeah,
Yes, and you
yeah.
also have to get real about, well, actually, I don't really know what happens at this in this part of the situation. Well, what would I like to have? Forces you into more honesty with yourself and with other people. I am sure that in cases of politics and civic matters, as we mentioned, it's very easy to get into the weeds, whether you want to or not. So to be able to cut to the chase will save people a lot of time and frustration, and it might encourage more people to actually get involved because they don't feel so frustrated by all of the unnecessary complications and details that some people throw in on purpose just to keep people from
Yeah, it creates
really doing
clarity.
things.
Yeah,
Exactly. And the
yeah,
clarity to me is the most important thing, whether you're speaking or whether you're drawing,
yes,
right? They're all in service of clarity and consensus. If it can be reached, at least you understand each other. Even if you don't agree,
right.
at least you understand each other. We never all agree, but if we can clear up the misunderstandings and make people go, oh, now I see what you were talking about, now we can at least have a conversation. about things where we're on completely different.
Well, you truly were inspired when we first met, and you said, at first I didn't see how we would ever have anything in common or how we would ever be able to work
Yeah,
together
I
on
almost
something
didn't
that,
pitch you because I
yeah,
was thinking, well, what are we going to
yeah.
talk about? But really, I'm thrilled to be here because I would love if anybody sees this and uses any of these tech to help them get their point across or to help them get on the same page with somebody else with whom they may not agree, or to help enroll somebody else in their vision. People can't get excited about something they don't understand. They can't support something that they're not clear about. If you can get them clear enough to get their support, that it might make a
It
big
might win the
difference
day. I have a feeling we'll be using this.
for,
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
initiative.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Good night.
Bye bye.